This is TWiT.
Of the State of the Union, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Awesome. I mean, what a business to run. If you look at the products that you put on stage and you look at the past couple of decades of category creation, I think about the business in a couple of forms. One is, how do we make sure that we're evangelizing and kind of propagating these products out into this great technology that Scott and Abe and teams build? And so a lot of that's happening in partnership, obviously, with Ann Lynn's and her organization, and through our digital funnel for consumers and small to medium businesses. And our job is to really make sure that we're evangelizing and investing in the categories that will take these nascent applications that are really going to transform creativity and get them out there in as many hands as possible. So that's a big effort that I partner with Ann on. I'd say we've got really strong momentum against the core of this business and creativity, and in Acrobat and the PDF business, which is actually going quite strong.
Having that paired with social platforms and publishers' desire to give attribution to the media that they're showing and how it was edited, so that they can really kind of show the history of an image or an asset or a video, any type of asset. And it's and so you can imagine, some point in the future where we start to discover some form of video or imagery somewhere on the web, and it may have a little badge that says, it's there's more information to learn about this image or video. And especially if it's polarizing, we may want to say, like, hey, and where'd this come from? Who did this? What went on there? And it just gives you another level of insight into who made it. Of course, they opt in to share that information, the creatives themselves, from the tools that they use, and and even some granular sense of how it was edited. So you can see what was changed, because these days, a lot of images are edited for great reasons. And we just want people to be able to understand and make that decision for themselves. So it's the early stage of the journey. It's exciting to have New York Times and Twitter, excited to join us on this journey. And I think the technical summit will start to answer some of the questions about real next steps with some of our partners.
A couple of other things maybe that I would add. Dana Rao, who's our GC, we're actually going to have a briefing as well for people who are interested, that talk a little bit more in detail about what's happening. There is a blog also where you can actually go see what the advanced research team from Adobe has done with respect to going back and looking at what files were altered and how they were altered. But I think Scott did a great job this morning about talking the importance, frankly, first, people who create this content, standing that by their work and wanting attribution. Tool and solution providers like Adobe, where we will step up and say, how do you create, it's sort of what happened in the journalism industry with the byline. How do you have, the ability for people to save their documents and say that they've created it through Adobe. All of the distributors are certainly going to, want to sign up to this initiative. It's a bit like what's happened with ads, and if we can do that for content. Last but not least, I think it's all of us as consumers, and when all of us as consumers demand that we want to see, where that piece of content was created and how it was altered, I think that's going to change the narrative and the conversation.
Kasara, PC Watch from Japan. So you mentioned about also more communicate with consumers. So on the Creative Cloud, this is pretty good. However, so your product itself is you have elements for consumer as well. So could you give me a more vision for between elements and the Creative Cloud for consumers?
Yeah, I think it's the mission is creativity for all. And what we find now, as there are more platforms and means of self-expression out there for everyday consumers, everyone wants to have the power of a product like Photoshop in the palm of their hand. Unlike pros, a lot of these consumers prefer to have these as mobile apps or quick web apps. And we've seen that with products like Spark that have been very successful in market, Photoshop Express, and of course we shared Photoshop Camera today, another effort to really serve the consumer demand for creativity. We're building out an incredible offering for consumers, and we couldn't be more excited about it because there are a lot more consumers and everyone who wants to be creative than there are creative professionals in the world. And of course, some of those consumers end up becoming professionals, and we want to meet them where they are, especially when they're still students and kids, give them the tools to create.
Do you possibly pay much more attention to Chinese market, and what does Chinese market mean now for Adobe? Thank you very much.
Well, Adobe has always been a global company, and we take incredible pride in the fact that our products are actually available over 180 countries. I think as we transition to the cloud, the first thing that we wanted to do was focus on Creative Cloud for Teams and have that available in the China market. In fact, Bryan and I were in Shanghai when we launched Creative Cloud. Subsequent to that, we've actually been launching a lot more of our products as well. Lightroom has certainly seen a lot of success in China. And it would be our goal, clearly, to have all our products available in every single market. There are clearly regulations in China that we have to work through in terms of the services that we're providing. But our intent, as Scott said, is clearly creativity for all. China continues to be a large growth opportunity for us, as are all emerging markets. This innate desire to tell stories is so strong in countries like China and India and Southeast Asia. And so we're just working through the sequencing rather than that not being a strategic intent for the company.